In his book Homodeus, published in 2015, historian Yuval Noah Harari writes that just as ancient Greeks entrusted their faith in oracles for guidance, contemporary societies have a tendency to place their trust in algorithms, data, and artificial intelligence without critically examining their potential limitations, biases, and ethical implications. Do you agree? In this episode of Tech Talk, the last one of our Data and AI season, we get philosophical and practical with two guests from PwC Luxembourg, Saharnaz Dilmaghani, Senior Associate from the Data Analytics and AI team, and also an AI specialist, and Vojtech Volf, Manager and Specialist in ICT Regulatory and Compliance. Together, we discuss the potential ethical concerns and risks associated with the use of AI, including generative AI, and how organizations can foster a culture of responsible use of these tools. We also deep dive into the European Union AI Act, the first European Union regulatory framework for the AI proposed by the European Commission in April 2021, which has recently been adopted by the EU Parliament. And today's episode holds a bittersweet significance as I bring you the news that this will be my final episode, well, almost, as a co-host of Tech Talk. Over the past year, we've explored the latest innovations, interviewed some of the most brilliant minds, and delved into the possibilities that technology offers. It has been an incredible journey, and I'm immensely grateful for the privilege of having shared this platform with you all. I'm especially grateful to Carla, who has been an amazing co-host and a friend. Let's keep in touch and let's get right into it.
Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. This is episode 4, the last one of our season on data and AI, and it's called the one on responsible AI. Hello Armin, how are you?
I'm doing great, Carla. The summer is really doing me good.
Yes, because you are going on holidays very soon.
Yes, and I'm going back to your home country.
That's true. Lucky you.
I've set a goal for myself to eat at least 3 pastéis de nata per day. One for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner.
I want to see how you look like when you come back.
That was really fun.
We are joined by two fantastic guests, Vojtech and Saharnaz. How do we agreed on this before?
You can just say Sahar to make it easy. Yeah.
Yes. And Armin, do you want to start with the first question?
Yes, of course. So, first things first, we hear about responsible AI, but what does it mean and why is it important in today's technology-driven world?
That's a good question. Maybe I take it, Vojtech.
Go ahead.
Responsible AI, as it comes with the name, it's like how we use technology responsibly, how we mitigate the risks as much as possible. Because as you can see with generative AI, it is everywhere now. We cannot avoid it anymore. And I think nobody can, actually. And the risks and basically the concerns to society, to people, the impact is much more higher than what we had with traditional AI. I'm saying traditional AI because generative AI is kind of taking over. So that's why we are considering all the controls to implement AI responsibly and to make sure that we are governing it and we are taking advantages and benefits out of it.
And what does using AI responsibly mean to you in a few words?
Well, to me personally, so I actually had 2 hats, basically, because I've been always in educational. My educational background was always in developing algorithms, computer science. So I'm the one who loves to explore technology, to develop. But also at some time, I get into this standardization of AI during my PhD. And that opened the door of, yes, AI can make things wrong. And the impacts might be quite, that could really impact people. So that's where these two kind of, clash, and responsible AI came out. So that's why that's how it looks like to me. So it's kind of combination of both. So I don't want to be limited by using technology, but I also like to make sure that what I'm doing, or if I'm developing something, does good to society. And
I think it's just so interesting that now we are talking about traditional AI.
Yeah, indeed. Right. I didn't think about it before, so I was thinking, maybe machine learning algorithms are really, although generative AI is a subcategory of machine learning when I look at it technically, but I think having generative AI and foundational models is kind of now the new era of AI. Nobody likes to go back and write codes and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And how does it impact financial sector from a regulatory and compliance perspective, which I know is a question that many listeners ask themselves?
Yeah, it is.
I think Vojtech will definitely have a better idea on that. So
yeah, it's a fantastic question. I mean, we don't know that much of responsible AI, generative AI, and how will it impact, because it's not that widely used. But if we look at the latest reports of the SSF on, the usage of AI and machine learning, we see that there is already quite a traction actually. Around 30% of the financial entities, mostly banks, payment institution, and e-money, are already using AI in their processes and different tools that they may have. But I think this will actually increase in the coming years quite heavily. Of course, they are indeed afraid of the risk that Sahar mentioned already. Where is the data coming from? How can we use it? How can we ensure that it's the responsible AI and they will not, do any damage to our entity? But I think the potential and the benefits that it can bring, I think we're talking about, quite a bit of an impact on our everyday life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the potential ethical concerns or risks associated with the use of AI? Can you give some examples?
Yeah, of course. Maybe I start with some. So I think you all maybe heard already a lot of examples. For example, the case with the lawyer who took basically some cases that was generated by ChatGPT. And ChatGPT and all these LLM models in general are very good in hallucination. So if you don't take care, and it's really fascinating. I think that's also one thing that is absolutely changed. So now we are these models are so good that they can fool you. And if you are not really going into control process, let's say you are not really validating those answers, even a lawyer could be, fall into that trap. So we see a lot of those cases that caused basically by hallucination of these models. Or, for example, the image that you might see from Pop, who was wearing this white jacket, and a lot of newspapers took that as they didn't know that it's not original, and they were all fooled by the fact that this was actually generated by LLM models. So we should not really rely on what we see, what we hear, and what we read these days, which is obviously a big concern.
Yes,
Definitely.
I saw there was this tweet. I think it was Olivier Blanchard, this very famous French economist, and he was posting this student reached out to him and saying, "Hey, I'm contacting you because you wrote this and that paper in which you claim this and that."
Mm-hmm.
And he basically replies, "I've never written such a thing."
Yeah.
And it sounds like something
Actually,
I would
that
write
happens
about.
to a lot of my friends as well who were writing their thesis, and they said that imagine you're at the last stage, you want to finish your thesis, and suddenly GPT gives you some citations that you didn't see, so you feel like, oh my god, I missed a lot of things. And then after doing a lot of investigation, you say that no, this is not really existing. Although, for example, the authors are completely, for example, the actual original authors, but the title, that paper doesn't exist. So it's fascinating. I don't know how does it happen. Do you have any examples in?
I think the ethics and these risks, people basically asking ChatGPT to write the thesis. You see, imagine you have a PhD and someone else has a PhD that was completely written by an AI.
I missed that,
Yeah.
I want to go back now.
I think that advantage, and I think if we apply to other fields, let's not only focus on finance, but we say in the arts industry, right? Yes. AI can develop a lot of pictures based on historical and important painters of the past, right? And this is something that no one can replicate. And is it then potential IP infringement, intellectual property infringement, or you see, how do we look at that? Because of course artists are heavily impacted by that, and On the other hand, the art looks extremely beautiful. I think, some of the generated AI pictures are just gorgeous.
Indeed.
Right.
Can I agree more?
As it becomes more commonplace to have, generative AI everywhere, and now especially in the business world, how do you see it impacting the relationship between humans and the machine? And what are the ethical concerns here?
Yeah, we definitely need to consider generative AI coming into the business, right? Whether it's the big players, law firms that are looking into Harvey and using it into administrative tasks and just cutting down the time. But also, we need to know that AI will not fully take over any process, right? We just need to see AI as something that will basically speed up any type of task that we're doing. And there will always, or there should be always, a human that sort of interacts with it, right? We will see it on the regulatory part later, that there is a need for that, and there will be prescribed by the law, basically, that AI on its own cannot be operated. There will always have to be a human interaction. We also see it not only on the law firms, but also within PwC. And Sahar, do you want to tell us a bit more about what we do in PwC when it comes to AI?
Of course. I think from the beginning, we were heavily first of all, excited about such a thing, and we were following the news, but now we started exploring things. First of all, to understand the market, the change, but also how this can bring value to us and to increase and improve our services to clients. And as time passed, we see that it's kind of we cannot ignore it at all. So initially it was kind of let's observe, let's explore. But now we are looking into use cases closely, internally, and also to our clients, how we can leverage it. But I think it's a really interesting point that you've mentioned about this interaction between human and machines. And although we mentioned the risks, and I'm totally, I'm not saying that we should ignore those. But I think we should not forget that this is still a machine, and we can use it cautiously, responsibly. But also we should not forget that when it comes to in the real life examples, when, for example, we are working in a team, we are asking someone to draft something, we never turn to him say that, okay, what you wrote is 100% accurate. Right? Mm-hmm. So we should not really expect this from a machine, because now we are not really thinking about fully automating things. We are not there yet. But why not to leverage this? And I think, what do you think about that?
I think you're on point here. I think the critical thinking that we apply on everyday life, whether we discuss with colleagues, with our clients, can simply be replicated. And we need to apply that when we discuss with a machine, right? Whether it's the AI giving us the input. And if we apply that, I think we're closer to the responsible and limiting the risks that we presented in the beginning.
Of course. And this would be actually, we can look into it as a human-machine collaboration. And that way we can definitely also mitigate the risks. And I think I listened to the last episode where Andreas was explaining the data survey, where we also captured this actually with a Luxembourg market. Of course, Luxembourg is a little bit small to have a conclusion, but I think there we also see that it was really interesting and surprisingly surprising for us to see that how market is also thinking about using technology. They are open to generative AI, although this survey was done in earlier stages where we were not, every day is a big change now with generative AI, right?
Yes.
But we were so happy to see that how market is looking into it positive, although I think they don't have any other choices as well, right? But it was so good to see that, yes, this is a positive moment, and I think we are living really in a right moment, exciting moment. And there's a lot to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's very interesting what you said about humans and machines collaborating. And I think there needs to be a balance, and to just learn, just like any other technology that we have, we need to find the right way to use it in a responsible way. And that leads me to my next question, which is, how can organizations foster a culture of responsible AI use and ensure ethical decision-making throughout the development and deployment of processes?
I think this is really the crucial aspect of having a responsible AI, because if any entity would like to use AI going forward, they need to ensure that they have the right controls on to mitigate the risk, but also it's really starting with the governance around that, right? Having also the knowledge themselves, right? Do they understand the AI, the potential risks that are hidden behind that? Because that is a new animal, I think, in the market, and of course we can help them, on that journey. That's one thing, and I think there is not only the governance, but also the different trainings and upskilling that the people have to go through. As we said, it's a machine to human, right, Sahar?
Yeah.
And therefore, they will need to be upskilled and to understand what are the capabilities of AI. Because today, of course, I know ChatGPT can, give us an output if we ask the right question. But how to ask those questions, how to utilize this tool fully, I think that's something that they are not yet on the top of. And I think we also can learn a lot from that. And that is the right, I think when it comes to the controls, it's really the appropriate risk management, the right compliance. We also have a new regulatory framework on the horizon, and also ensure the monitoring of that tool, not only through usage, but also looking sort of backwards. And I think, Sahar, when we talk about PwC and this, how do we use it and how would we, foster the culture of responsible AI, how do we do that here in PwC?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm so happy to say that. In the firm, we were working on responsible AI toolkit for a long time before even we talk about generative AI. Because as I said also earlier, like these risks and these concerns kind of raised when we were using AI at early stages. So it's so good that we already have like globally put out on how to generate a framework that when we are implementing and developing an AI system, we make sure that we mitigated the risks as much as possible. But now with generative AI and the new risks and basically the more that we learn, because I'm sure that you agree with me on that we are not really using these tools with the full capacity. So there's a lot to discover and there's a lot to come. Just yesterday I was dealing with Google Bard, like just practicing with it to see like what are the capacities, like the OpenAI code interpreter. These are like all new things that are just coming to the market, and there's a lot like closing the brackets here about the applications. Responsible AI is something that we are working and we are implementing to different use cases with different clients all over the world in all the territories. And this is something that we, starting from the strategy, planning, design of AI till development, tests, and also considering all the measures and metrics regarding bias, fairness, transparency. All these things are considered within this framework. And then now, of course, also the post-monitoring and all the maintenance and requirements that we need to take care after implementing and putting it in production. And this is also something that we'll touch upon when we are discussing about regulation. I think that's also one of the main questions that you had, right? To learn more about how these technologies are regulated. We also have like a lot of we put a lot of thought on AI governance. So all the measures and all the strategy, basically policies to define, and we are also learning by doing. So now we are also looking into policies. We are also heavily investigating on policies and guidelines to use generative AI, LLM models, and to make sure that we are basically, especially when it comes to our client and individual data, we make sure that we are not really raising any risks around that.
And an out of the blue question, do you get a lot of such requests, or are you doing it proactively, or you already receive such requests from clients?
To put the guidelines,
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So you're preparing the guidelines because clients are asking for them, or because you expect them to be asking them from?
Well, actually, it's more on the second part, because of course we are trying to learn this before the requests come, so that we are ready for the market and we are ready to answer the questions with the right tool, with the right application. And we want to actually, we are implementing all those things so that later on we can tailor it for the client's need. So it's mostly from our own curiosity, I would say, and our own learning path. That is like we are heavily investing on that. Like globally, we are connecting and we're discussing all those things. So I think it's just more on discovering right now to see what are the risks and how far we can implement this to clients.
I think the market is also not fully mature to yet adopt an AI.
That's also a good point.
But I think it's important they start exploring, right? Maybe they can invite us or other experts to show them what the capabilities of AI are, because there is a lot, and I think they're just maybe lacking the imagination, if I can say that, to really imagine what is possible with AI. And I think this will come in the coming months, pretty soon, potentially after the summer for some who are, more mature or keen to adopt a new technology.
Exactly. Yeah, and we also saw this actually also interesting fact in the survey that kind of this generative AI was a trigger for a lot of industries and sectors, even financial sector, that are mostly, they want to keep what they have, so they're not really willing to change, and that's understandable.
Lagging behind, indeed.
Exactly. But we saw this also a lot from banks and from financial sectors, that how much they are interested in learning and to find opportunities, to seek the opportunities, so that they integrate, they leverage AI in their daily tasks.
Very interesting.
We also think that you can agree with us when we say that policymakers and regulatory bodies have a role to play.
Of course.
Especially in ensuring the responsible development and deployment of different AI technologies. So in fact, in April 2021, the European Commission proposed the first European Union regulatory framework for AI, also known as the EU AI Act. Now, infamous EU AI Act, everybody's talking about. What is its purpose? Brief.
Well, yeah, AI Act, indeed, the first draft published in April 21, now recently voted on as the final text. Hopefully, we also see that because of the generative AI being sort of driven very fast, also the regulators from the European level wanted to sort of match that speed and publish a text that would regulate these AI models. And it's important to know that, of course, they want to foster technologies and use of AI, but of course there is the importance to regulate it. As we talk about responsible AI today. So of course they have sort of divided the different ways how AI can be used. We see that there are certain prohibited AI usages when we talk biometric and analysis of assessing people in real time. So that's not something that will be allowed going forward, and there are heavy fines for using that actually. And then we see these different risk levels. So we have high risk, medium risk, and low risk. Different AIs, and of course those can be used going forward, but different level of governance and also risk management will have to be put in place, right? When we talk about financial institutions, especially here in Luxembourg, it's our pure market here. Most of the solutions, and Sahar, maybe you jump in if you disagree, is the use of AI there will be considered as high risk. Potentially, we might look at some medium risk examples, but potentially all of them will be considered in this high risk category, which will mean that all of those entities and their teams will need to implement sufficient controls in place to ensure that these AI models and the use of AI is properly governed and also controlled and monitored. Now, if we look at some of the examples of what is really the trigger behind this regulation, right? We see that whatever comes out of ChatGPT or Bing or Harvey or whatnot is not something that is sort of assessed by anyone, right? We talk about, okay, how do we know that someone did not copy their PhD? And we thought about, okay, look, how can you actually ensure that it's not AI generated or something else? So we talk about even the models of having a watermark on a text, right? I think that would be great to ensure that whatever we read online, whatever you read from someone else is not really generated by AI, but there is some, source checking, and it's important to know where the data is coming from. But there are, of course, many challenges that the EU and this regulation will have to cover, and I think there is a lot more to come.
Right. And
are you going to add on to that? Or?
Well, AI Act for me is actually, it's my baby project. So as I said, I'm a person coming from technology background, And to me, this was like kind of opening the legal doors for me. I met a lot of fantastic people, and I get connected to our compliance and regulation department, and also globally talking with people from legal and law background. Which I've never imagined. Like I was thinking, okay, it's always related to IP and things like that. That might be come across, but now it's different. And this is actually one of the regulations and legislations in related to technology. And I think now there are more coming around this, right, Vojtech? I think
absolutely. The AI Act is part of this. Technology is evolving, and IT and AI is something that connects the whole world, especially financial sector.
Yeah.
And we have others, right? So AI Act, of course, touches on important aspects of this risk management framework, but we see it in GDPR that came out in 2018. We see it in DORA regulation that is on the horizon and up to be basically applicable from 25. We see it with Data Governance Act that I think you might also look into, Sahar, soon.
Exactly.
So
Data
your second
Act.
baby,
Yes.
sort of looking into that. Let's see.
I'm good with one for now. So
One at a time.
Yeah, indeed. So actually, yes, AI Act was quite like we were following it from early stages. And now it's even more mature with the new release of European Parliament, where they also include the foundational model. And you can actually see how things are changing so fast. Like in the last version that we got in December, there was no discussion about things like LLM model, foundational model. And now with this new version, we see that how it finds its way, also in the legislation, even though those things are quite slow, we always have legislation and regulations. They're a little bit lagging behind the technology, but this time it was a nice thing to see that how fast and quickly they adjusted, and it's also actually a good news. So actually, yes, I think I totally agree with you, and all the principles you already mentioned, so I don't want to go through that, but I think looking into this legislation, so going one step back, actually with AI and generative AI foundational model, the thing is that we don't yet have a threshold on what is safe for everyone. So we don't have those basically standards, and we don't know what could be good. We don't have consensus on what is the capability, what capability looks like, So
maybe the regulation will bring, will help to assess that, because we see the introduction of a European body that will look at AI models. We see that they want to set up a register that will basically look at what is used by whom, is it safe? So hopefully, maybe it's the first time where regulation is not just slowing down technology, but it might actually assess.
That's actually another good point that we should also maybe tackle that, how does it look like? Is it going to take EU, from
from the race?
Exactly, to it's going to be a game changer in a way that it's going to finish.
Let's see. I think you're touching on a very important aspect, because if you look at the news, they say, look, Europe is the first one to sort of start regulating, right? Normally, we would think, regulating things slows down things, but it might actually be that we might be ahead of the game.
And it can definitely brings the new opportunities, right? I'm sorry that I'm again referring to our data survey, because that's also something that I was reading recently. So that was
perfect. Because,
actually,
I have a question about that.
Perfect. So I think I already answered, hopefully.
maybe because indeed in the survey, and we discussed this with Andreas in the last episode. We did talk about what the respondents said regarding what were their first impressions about the AI Act, and they were actually expressed optimism about the new regulatory framework leading to improved competitiveness.
Exactly.
But they also expressed concerns about the added administrative workload. This is a tough word. What do you think about this, actually? And I mean, in your opinion, how can companies manage effectively the advantages while mitigating these potential drawbacks? Because might be more work for them.
Exactly. Actually, that was exactly the point I want to raise. So thank you for mentioning that. So it was again a positive surprise for us to see that even though it's another regulation, especially for financial sector, so I'll let Vojtech to comment on that. So another, addition to all those things that they have.
Oh no, not again.
Exactly, another one. And this one is tough because, as I said, like there are a lot of ambiguity on the act. We don't have yet standards. So there's also a lot going on the standardization committee in EU level, with ESO. But the thing is, there's a lot to discover, and we are not still there to even to think about the documentation and all the templates. So these are a lot of works for the companies. But even though we see this huge interest, and a lot of them take this as a positive opportunity, which is really good when you look at that. So it shows that, and it was interesting actually in one of the talks I've heard that it is not only for us, not in our small territory, but globally, a lot of companies are reaching out because they don't want to follow their own standards and their neighbor follows another ethical standard. So it's actually a global need, and this is really good. But also at the same time, of course, it's going to increase a lot of effort for compliance, for the requirements. And I'm sure you have a lot to say there. But also, I think, like, as I said, it's like there are also a lot of challenges here. So I will add those challenges from global perspective there. It's like my own opinion, but I'll let you to comment on the compliance part. Wojtek, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so if we look at financial sector, right, I think a lot of entities will see it as sort of cost optimization, right? That's sort of the first thought they might have. But of course, complying with the AI Act and whatever is on the horizon as well adds another sort of heavy burden on not only compliance, but also risk colleagues on the first line of defense when it comes to IT. And of course, having the appropriate knowledge within your entity, which the AI Act sort of prescribes to have, is not something that will be easy on the market, right? It is a new technology. Of course, we have Sahar, who's really the expert, but there's not many experts on the market, right? So that's going to be one challenge to also bring that forward. And of course, having the right human interactions with this machine, as we discussed in the previous question. So I think there is a lot of burden, but hopefully, which I believe is the case, that the positives, the benefits of AI will actually prevail, and we will see that a lot of financial institutions will be adopting AI in their processes and in their day-to-day work. What about the global drawbacks?
Exactly. Actually, that's a very good point. So EU was actually being the first taking these steps toward legislation and regulating AI, but now we see a lot from US that they're also taking this, that there's a lot of debate there, Singapore, and we have actually a hot news today that yesterday China kind of published this regulation on generative AI. So specifically, they focused on basically the data privacy aspect, the transparency part, and also this the notion of copyright, about data copyright and things around the data that is used for generative AI. So it's actually quite interesting that generative AI itself was a big trigger for global policymakers, regulatory authorities, regulation authorities to start thinking about putting regulatory framework around AI and generative AI. And actually, the thing is, okay, once we used to have a lot of questions about AI Act, such as like who is going to be the in member states, who is going to be the agency to do the confirmation, and a lot of other questions. So there still it's still finalized, and we are looking for the final draft. Hopefully that is promised to be published by November, hopefully by the end of this year. So hopefully we'll get those answers. But the main stage for me, actually, and I'd like to know your opinion on this as well, is that like we're going to have a lot of legislation. Like US is now trying to sit with EU and think about, how to harmonize this and basically to converge. But it's going to be definitely a hard thing to be globally converge on this. So to me, it's also like, what will happen? So is a provider, AI provider, should they provide different versions? Because they need to follow with, so it's actually, it's going to go to even next levels of discussion.
I think the global is the right word, because even the EU Act, right? Which normally you would think that would apply only in the EU and our member states. It goes actually further because it talks about the importers of AI technologies, right? So those who basically talk about the producer of the AI and they want to import it into EU, they will be in scope or have to sort of look at the AI Act and also follow it in a way because they are, expected to have a local presence in EU before they can actually offer the AI. So it is, as Sarah said, a very global topic and something that not only EU has to deal with, but also together with potentially China, potentially US. And I think it's really interesting to see what happens.
And I think companies, they're not really, they're not going to want to follow different standards into different important markets, right? Especially when it comes to EU, US. But yeah, I think it's just add to my first point that we are in an interesting time with technology, with all legislation, and I think it's both fabulous and it's scary. And I was trying to find a word that attach these two together, and I asked actually GPT that give me a word, and I come up with fabulousary.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, let's innovate something.
Yes.
So yeah, because I'm always like trying to express my emotion, like how do I feel? It's like, okay, it's amazing, but I'm also, because I'm quite involved in regulation, like, okay, so where I am now and how do I feel? I don't know if that happens to you as well.
I feel exactly the same, especially about AI as we are today. I have mixed feelings, so that's a great way to put combined.
Fabulousary, we will go with that.
Perfect. This is a very good place to end this episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. We had such a lovely discussion.
It was great. Yes,
it was ours, I think, right?
Exactly. I'm so happy that we had the discussion, and thank you for inviting us.
Maybe you come back again.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot to discuss about regulations and
change.
We don't know what happens next week.
Exactly. Even tomorrow. So yeah, let's catch up again.
Thanks ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And that's all for today and the next month. But don't be sad because we will be back in September after a well-deserved break with an exciting episode about fighting financial crime with two outstanding guests. Pavžil, who is a lawyer with extensive experience in global financial services laws and who is probably best known for being the whistleblower who exposed Wirecard. And he will be joined by Michael Weiss, forensics and anti-financial crime leader at PwC Luxembourg. Until then, we wish you a lovely and refreshing summer, if that's possible. And if you miss us too much, feel free to listen or re-listen to our previous episodes. Thank you so much for your support, and see you soon.